Hi there, and welcome to the Deep End. Week 1 in the books, September 10th, 2024. Mike Shope, Adam Krautwurst. Adam is just back from Vegas. We'll sort of find out how his trip went. What was the best meal Adam had, and was it as good as the times I went to Vegas? Cannot wait to find out. We have not spoken since his return yesterday. There's a lot to figure out, as usual, from week 1. What happened at tight end? We'll talk about injuries and sort of waiver stuff tonight, the things everybody in the high-stakes world cares about and is trying to get right this week. And we'll look at a couple of our favorite teams here as we start the season, maybe even reflect on what we wish we could do over in drafts all summer. It's been a while, but we're glad to be back. Mike and Adam, powered by the Player Profiler Network. This is the Deep End.
Las Vegas, Nevada, Michael. It was a blast. It was a blast. I got to say though, this was the busiest year I've ever had drafting out there. I think it's because of the games, right? There was a Thursday and a Friday night game, so there was less time to draft. So when the games were going on, I was drafting more. I had a draft after the Thursday night game, a draft after the Friday night game, all day Saturday. It was a blast. Saw the Go Bills guy, saw, all the usual suspects out there. You weren't there. Louis G wasn't there. Western New York was lacking in representation out there this year. But it was a really good time. I had some good meals. My favorite meal was at Beauty and Essex. It is a speakeasy in the Cosmopolitan, the Cosmo. And so we went there, had a little tomahawk steak with the boys. But yeah, all in all, it was a great weekend.
Who found it?
I went there 4 or 5 years ago with my cousin, so he found it. I'm giving him. It was actually directly across the hall from Jose Andrews.
Jose Andrews.
Mm-hmm. Yep, his restaurant that we went to last year. So
Jaleo.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
We almost went to the Cosmopolitan last year to eat at Giada.
Okay.
But we didn't last minute, and there was a bit of a scramble. So you did fine.
Oh yeah, we did.
How did the Friday night game affect the weekend? So I know for one thing, our bare knuckle challenge was canceled.
Yes. How did it affect the weekend as far as like drafting?
Yes. So was there a second party on the Friday night where people watched that game? I know there was something FFPC charged for because, when Louis and I have been out there the last 3 years, that was our prime draft slot, was the Friday night. And this year, that was right during Packers-Eagles, so there were probably no drafts during the game, or no?
No drafts during the game. Yeah, I spent both nights at the FFWC over at Circa, being a employee of theirs as well. And their parties are awesome. Like FFPC has more people there, and it's like a ballroom, a bigger TV, and all that. I did catch the end of, because I had a Thursday night draft with FFPC. So I came back early and caught the end of the party on Thursday night. Room was packed as usual. And then the ending of that game was wild, obviously, with the touchdown in the end zone, with the way that kind of happened. Everyone's going crazy. It's likely going for 1 million points. Where's he going to get drafted? That type of thing. I was watching that with the ship chasing guys there. So that was really fun. Friday night, again, I was back with the FFWC, big poolside party there. And then immediately following, I had a 5K right after that. So I found it interesting drafting in a sense that, like, it's one thing to draft after the Thursday night game. You have one game, one set of players to kind of quickly reevaluate or quickly have the ADP change. But then you've got a Friday night game. Now you have the Saquon Barkley thing. Like I said, I picked in a 5K right after the Thursday night game. And Barkley, I think, went 3 or 4 overall. Mm-hmm. And then I picked in a main event Saturday morning. I had the 101, and I took Barkley.
How did that feel?
It felt good. I needed, I don't draft like this, but I was worried like if people are gonna like when you take Barkley 101. I needed more exposure to Barkley, to be honest with you, and I was able to create. I think I sent you the roster to be able to create like unique rosters that no one else really has, because no one was taking Barkley in the top 5 or 6 prior to that weekend. So that was fun. That was fun to be able to do and lock in that 33 points or whatever he had. So
did that team win?
It did, but it didn't win. I had to squeak it out. I had to squeak it out. So, and I may, God, I should go look. I may have won because of the team had Christian McCaffrey, the other team.
Uh-oh.
Might have had
At
Christian
2,
McCaffrey.
did McCaffrey go 2 and then he was stuck?
That's exactly what it was. And he was stuck. Yep.
Did we miss something there? I mean, it is weird how Jordan Mason is saying he knew on Friday he would play or start, and then Kyle Shanahan denied that, and that put Mason in a tough spot last night. But McCaffrey at his age, and okay, well, it was always tough. He set out the preseason, not surprisingly, calf/Achilles. Should we have been more prepared? I mean, in terms of most of us, more prepared for the possibility that McCaffrey would not start the season?
Sure, but the weekend's honestly like a whirlwind when you're drafting. Like, and I remember saying to you, we had a draft maybe last weekend, and I was like, we can draft. We had the 102 or 3 or something like that. I'm like, hey, we can draft McCaffrey, but I'm not doing it unless we're taking Mason. Like, I was yes, McCaffrey, but we got to have Mason. Hopefully, if people were doing that, taking the CMC in the top 3, they were also taking Mason later on. And it was hard. So you were high on Mason. You had a ton of him in the offseason. Kudos. How were you able to get him into the lineup, into non-CMC lineups? That's the hard part. It was
that's the best ball, portfolio where
that's right.
I didn't get to Mason until the first preseason game. And then I think I would say I was fortunate. There was still time to catch up where Mason was not being drafted at all. For that, it was Eli Mitchell or Garendo. I'm in a league that I started 7 or 8 years ago where we draft 18 rounds the night before the Super Bowl and then 6 more in July and 24 rounds. Nobody picked Mason even then. So he was pretty available. If you look at your stuff going back before training camp or before preseason week 1, there's not a lot of Jordan Mason, but I caught up and got ahead in those last few weeks. And then as you and I both realized last weekend, I drafted a main event with Louis on Saturday between the 2 night games and the Sunday slate. And in both of our drafts that we did then, Mason went in round 10.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another one where it's way earlier than it had been, but you still do it. And I don't know now. I mean, who knows what McCaffrey's outlook is, but one thing about Mason was he was great. And that's one reason why you did it, is in San Francisco's offense, you'd expect whoever can hold up physically in that next man up role for the Niners will be fine. And he was at least that.
Yeah, I mean, and they just came out Achilles tendonitis. Like, listen, you're adding Garendo now. You're keeping all the backs there. I mean, I could see them putting them on the IR, the short term IR. I mean, they're a Super Bowl contender. They can win with it. They just ran all over the Jets. The Jets are a really freaking good defense and a really good team. Favored to win the AFC East. And so, I mean, McCaffrey's going to be interesting. People got away with it, I think, this week because of a lot of the free looks. You were able to slide McCaffrey into the flex and then throw maybe an 8-point, Andrews in there or whatever he had to kind of get some points. But moving forward, it's going to be a lot tougher. But now we've got waivers to maybe add some running backs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I found one Fantasy Pros team. I was lucky to go 6-2 in 8 Fantasy Pros leagues this week where I had McCaffrey and Mason, and I honestly don't know for sure how that happened. It might have been through waivers this week. I mean, some of those teams were drafted in May, but love the idea of him. He's my 3rd highest owned running back, 4th highest owned player in underdog drafts, and right now that's very exciting. You sort of you're playing all these summer drafts. It's breaking you financially and maybe even like spiritually, but you're doing it hoping for the right rookies and the right sort of combos as you get later in the season. And I haven't enjoyed that so much yet. We're grinding and the odds are against being able to sort of hit the nuts when it comes to that. But Mason, I mean, it was only last night, week 1, but I feel like, we're off to a good start when it comes to him so far. And Bucky Irving, who's my 3rd highest owned player and 2nd highest owned running back so far at underdog. And he looked really good in week 1 in a complimentary role to Rashad White. The bigger story, I mean, maybe, arguably, McCaffrey is a huge story, and he may not play in week 2 at Minnesota as well. is what happened at tight end. So much, you and I, this is our thing. Every pros versus Joes, hard ways, everything we do. Tight end. I said the one time, this draft is going to revolve around tight end, and you said, doesn't it always? And really, this summer was no exception. You had 6 to 8 tight ends that were pushed up, not all the way to the first round necessarily, but a lot of interest in Kelce, McBride, Laporta, Andrews, Kincaid, Pitts, Kittle, Ingram. What an ugly week. Foster Moreau is tight end too, who I like that 3 years ago. But Adam, what happened here and what do we do about it?
Yeah, the top two, Likely and Moreau, nobody started them, right? And then, and it was still kind of the usual suspects, right? Bowers, welcome to the show. People liked him. Pitts is next. Laporta's in the top. A lot of the guys that we took high were in the top 10, but they were, 10 points, 8 points, 5 points. I mean,
whatever.
Kelce going into Sunday Night Football, I think was a top 12 tight end with, 7 fantasy points.
Right.
What do we do about it? There's not much we really can do about it. You took a lot of these guys you took in the second round, you're going to start them. And a lot of players are the focal points of their offense, and teams had weeks to prepare for the Ravens, weeks to prepare for the Chiefs. In fact, I saw Pat Kerrane actually was talking at the on Saturday or Sunday at the FFPC over there, and he was saying he was running the numbers and saying I forget what the exact numbers were, but the tight ends there were being between Kelce and Andrews. Andrews was double teamed in that game more than anyone was double teamed at all ever last season. So, and you could see like a lot of the end zone shots you got, he's bracketed. So this whole like changing of the guard from Andrews to Likely is probably not real, and Likely just happened to be that guy that they were leaving open. And kudos to the Ravens to continue to take what the defense was giving them, but they had all offseason to prepare for Mark Andrews, and they bracketed him and stuff like that. So Kelce looked fine. He didn't look slow. He didn't look broken. They just went other routes. So
Kansas City's defensive chess game stuff with Steve Spagnuolo is maybe my favorite in the NFL, because I'm not saying this is why that worked, but these teams met in the AFC Championship, and Andrews was just back from his terrible leg injury. So he's going to be active. What will happen? And he was a bit part in that game. Like, it was not that anything really went through Andrews. So maybe if you sort of think about it, zoom out, Kansas City, which held Baltimore to 10 points in that game, would not think to care that much about Andrews, because really, what should Baltimore want to do? Run it. That was what they got criticized for in that game. And then they signed Derrick Henry as well. That would be the move. Instead, Kansas City is kind of always a step ahead when it comes to this. And of course, like any team with a great quarterback, you can get away with it when it doesn't work because the quarterback can bail you out. We had Xavier Worthy go for 2 touchdowns in that game. Rashee Rice had a pretty good game. It was fun, Adam, with enough teams to make this interesting, where you have kind of a little bit of everybody figuring out which points to take and which points to throw back. And so Rice and Worthy, especially Worthy, were sort of obvious. Yes, of course, Likely if he had Likely, but no to Andrews, no to Kelce, and no to Flowers, and no to the kickers. That was also fun to play with on Sunday. We had one team with Tucker, who was 8 something, and we threw that back for Jason Sanders, which worked out on one team. So it was kind of fun to do that math this weekend. I would love that every week.
Yeah, the free look would be fun every week. I was on the opposite ends of obviously you started Worthy and Rice and stuff like that, but like I had a lot of Andrews teams. In fact, I had that same main event I'm talking about where I picked 101. I ended up taking Kelce Rice at the 2-3, and then I took Andrews at the 5-6. And I benched Kelce and Andrews.
No,
I know. I benched them both through. That wasn't a lot. They were 8 points, 10 points.
No, right. For whom? I can't wait to find out.
I know. I had to scroll down to find him. Noah Fant dead last year, injured naturally. The tight end with a great matchup. Took him in like the last round. I threw all the points back, Mike, all weekend. Every decision I made was incorrect. I threw back Justice Hill. for a receiver. It was just like every time I got burned. There was, the receiving. We'll get into it, but if you went heavy receiver, you probably got crushed this week. But the tight end position was a rough one. Juwan Johnson, Colby Parkinson, Chig, they all get in there. Gesicki, that was another one, Mike, that I drafted.
Yeah.
I threw points back, drafted Gesicki, great matchup, drops a touchdown. Like, oh my God, it's just the worst. It's brutal.
Well, tight end always keeps it interesting. Brock Bowers, who we're not mentioning yet, 3rd overall. We'll talk about him when it comes to our deep end dynasty team. Want to touch base with a couple of teams Adam and I have drafted in the high stakes space. We'll do that and talk some more about what we're all facing here going into week 2 as we continue on the deep end, Mike and Adam. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, you're in your fantasy draft and someone says, hey, that guy's injury prone. I don't want him. Hey, you're in your fantasy draft and someone says, hey, you're in your fantasy draft and someone says, hey, that guy's injury prone. I don't want him. And you're like, I don't know. I don't think you can predict injuries. Well, guess what? Now you can. Injury proneness is real. At Player Profiler, we have the data on these players, and it's all in the Injury Finder app. Their injury track record back through time, exactly where they were injured, how severe it is. We look at the BMI data, and we crunch it all together, and we give you probabilities that a player will miss multiple games this NFL season, as well as the complete database of NFL injuries and the ability to compare two players and look at their injury track record. The Injury Finder is powerful, and it's only $5. If it's worth it to have that peace of mind when you're drafting, go get it.
Was that? I didn't see that guy in Vegas either. What the heck?
No, he couldn't make it.
No, he couldn't. he could not make it. Look at that.
I do a Mr. Rogers voice, but I don't think I have one of those in me right now.
Mike, quick question from the chat.
Please.
Chiefs
Is it
pass.
personal?
Yes, Chiefs pass catching hierarchy. When Hollywood gets back, what are your thoughts? Do you have any inside info there?
I think Rice is, of course, Kelce too, but Rice is the wide receiver staple who you start every week. I mean, week 1, he was very reliable when it came to target share and production. And we spent most of the offseason, of course, wondering or worried even whether he'd be suspended. So he paid off big time as a early to midsummer best ball pick. Looks like he won't be. I think he's pretty safe. Worthy, you got to be a little bit more careful because it wasn't that much work. It was just a couple of big plays. I mean, he's super fast, explosive. I think he's more matchup based. I think Kelce, of course, you play. Rice, you play. Hollywood Brown has to prove. I wouldn't start him the first week he's active, which could be this week, because he has to prove that he can stay healthy and also that he commands targets on that team. So I'd go slow with him.
Yeah, I would too. I think Rice and Kelce are locked in every week. They're moving Rice all over the place. He's playing out of the slot, which is awesome for his skill set. Mahomes trusts him. I think you're starting both of them every week. And then Hollywood and Worthy are more best ball plays. And I think, they're going to get their little gadget stuff. I mean, everyone's going crazy over Worthy. Like, Worthy scored 2 touchdowns on like 4 touches. That's not going to happen every single week. So, and Hollywood's got to stay healthy. I mean, the guy's always hurt. He's always banged up. And that's going to be a serious problem for him moving forward, I think.
So we want to look at a couple of our teams here as we start the season that are more promising, because why would we talk about the ones that are not? You
Sure.
draft a lot. You draft a lot of teams that can feel dead already, and sometimes they're not. I mean, in high stakes FFPC, you definitely want to be working at it and not giving up. But in best ball, you have what you have, and you're drafting teams. I have teams with like Njoku and Ferguson, and that felt really good at the time. Like, all right, I got tight end covered, and they're both going to be out for a while, and I'm going to get zeros. You never know. You can't control that. But this team that I have for Adam to share is our Hardways team, which we drafted live on the stream on May 30th, I think it was. Yes. And our friend Austin Martin on the other side, one of the strongest players, toughest players I know. We got him this week with the team on the left. Look at this team. or I'll describe it if you're just listening. And, let's hear what we think about how solid this team is going forward. Again, this is a May draft, so there should be changes that you feel like you need to make. Kyler Murray, Joe Mixon, who was a fantasy beast in week 1. Aaron Jones was just fine. Cooper Kupp, what year is it?
Right.
2021. Justin Jefferson, not a big volume day, got in the end zone. Trey McBride, okay, it was tight end. Couple on the last drive to save him. Tyler Lockett, 6 for 77, the catch that clinched the game for Seattle. Jalen Waddle, in and out of the blue tent as usual.
Right.
5 for 109. Butker, New Orleans. New Orleans was my favorite defense pick of the entire summer. Who are they playing in week 1, round 20, all we care about, and we got paid off on that. Jamal Williams was a waivers pickup of ours last week. He did score, but I don't think that's going to be really that good. You're just trying to protect yourself against injuries, and New Orleans is pretty thin. Nick Chubb will be a while. Evan Hull, who's that?
Right.
Trey Benson got a drive against Buffalo. Estime, Corley, 1 snap. I don't know. Dortch, Mike Williams, 9 snaps. And they warned us. McCaffrey got all the headlines. ESPN warned us at the opening kickoff. Williams was going to be listed as a starter in the graphic, but would not play. Skipping to Hunter Henry. Okay. Brandon Cooks, 14.5 FFPC points in week 1, got in the end zone. Is he somebody? I mean, you were not cutting Brandon Cooks, but is he somebody, if he's available in your league, which is possible, that we care about?
I think so. I mean, he was a guy that I was kind of on a little bit. I think that was actually my pick. Now that I'm looking at this team, I think think you went on to the show and I made that. I snuck that in while you ran away. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think he'll be fine as long as he stays healthy. There's not much, especially with Ferguson out now, right? I mean, there's not going to be, much there to go to other than CeeDee Lamb. So, and kind of off topic, Zeke Elliott looked like really good. I hate this. Like the first time I see him out there running, I'm like, man, he looks thin and fast, like he used to be. It was weird to see. So good for him. But yeah, I think Cooks will be fine. I think our starting lineup's looking even better, right? I mean, Cooper Kupp now is going to be the focal point for the next month or so. Mixon's a beast. Mixon, man, 30 carries on Sunday. I don't know how long he can keep that up, but no. Listen, anytime you can come out of the game, anytime you can get an invite to draft in the hard way and smack Austin around, that's how you set the tone early. You know what I mean?
Has there been? I mean, we know Habib has won this tournament back-to-back. Go Bills have won the main event back-to-back. But would there be a greater fantasy football achievement than winning the Fantasy Pros through the hard ways?
That I never thought about that because I was like, no, there's no way anyone's winning out of this. Well,
right.
Step aside and watch us work.
I think our boy Theo had the highest score of the week in this tournament, by the way, before we give ourselves too much credit.
That's right.
Cup, Adam, cross your fingers, stay on the field. Like, look what that could be if he does.
I mean, it could be circa 2002, 2001. Well, I forget what it was, but yeah.
Cup's year, 21.
He won so much money for so many people, but yeah, I mean, if Puka's not there and he's healthy, it's going to be that every week. It always has been. Whenever he's been healthy, it always has been.
He's got to stay healthy. That's a big one. Let's take a look, if you have it, at our deep end Dynasty team in the FFPC as well. That looks like waivers, or that looks like the tight end grid. There it is. Deep end Dynasty, 1-0.
1-0.
Do you have the week 1
sure
matchup? I'd like to see that.
Let's see that. Live scoring. Do I go there?
Live scoring. There we are.
There we go.
That's week 2. There we go. All right.
There we go. We did it.
Tight, low scoring. Defensive struggle. Defense wins week 1. Allen, if you can scroll it, I'll read it. Allen, Ramondre Stevenson, Zamir White, Nico Collins, yes, please. George Pickens. I'm excited about that going forward, too. I liked how that game went for him. Malik Neighbors, shouldn't get worse. Dallas Goedert, Deshaun Watson, yikes.
Right.
Christian Kirk, yikes. Dalton Kincaid, but shouldn't be too much of a concern. On the bench, want to read it?
Yeah, Will Levis, yikes. Drake May, please. We're begging you to come back. Vidal doesn't play. Roshan, healthy scratch. Look at that. Jordan Mason.
Welcome to the starting lineup.
Welcome to the deep end. And we were just wondering, like, hey, how do we get these guys in? We couldn't get him in. No Monday night guy to get him in for. Algier, a non-factor. Bijan getting all the work as he should be. Mike Williams, Jonathan Mingo, Dontavian Wicks, and Brock Bowers, another guy.
Let's go.
That we could slide into. So I like the depth on this team. The quarterbacks are, an issue outside of Josh Allen. Watson's broken, and I got to say, I'm embarrassed. I did not. I still might be right, but I did not have Allen. I'm the biggest Josh Allen fan on the planet Earth. I did not have him as my QB1 this year because of the lack of talent around him. Again, he ran for 2 touchdowns. He's not going to run for 2 every week, but he'll probably run for 1 every week. He's just so good. He was like 19 of 24 or something. He was very, very efficient outside of the fumble. But Pickens, I'm excited about using him deep, using him over the middle, doing all the little things. They try to get him involved in some screen passes, so they're using him all over the field. But this team looks good. What are your thoughts? Because we're going to get questions. I know you've talked about it already a few times on WGR. Kincaid, Allen, what are your thoughts there on the Bills passing game?
Well, the one bright spot, the other bright spot on Kincaid is sort of the draft capital and the outlook going into the season. The one bright spot from week 1 was that he was on the field more than any other skill position player. Like, he played most of this game. All I ever saw him do was complain to refs. The only times I noticed Dalton Kincaid in this game was his throwing his arms up after Allen got hit late. What? Come on. But, some people are like that. You can't. What do you want to do about it? I mean, we have Goddard and Bowers. For me, 2 flex, but this week I would rank them Kincaid, Bowers, Goddard. Like, I think those are the 2 starters for me going into week 2. Kincaid at Miami on Thursday night. That's our bet. I mean, there's still, if you bet on him to be Buffalo's number 1 pass catcher, nobody else sort of did enough in week 1 to scare you away from that. Keon Coleman was relevant in that game and did all right. If you started Keon Coleman, you weren't buried. But I think we keep going with Kincaid. They have every reason. It's the offense. It's the draft capital, Super Bowl window stuff. They have every reason to force that to work. The one thing in the way is Dawson Knox. Knox blocks Kincaid because they want to run the ball more. So does everybody, apparently. And he has a good contract, and that limits Kincaid's usage. But again, he played a lot in that first game. He scored 34 points. Allen is Allen. We have him besides on the team. This is a dynasty team. I think we just keep riding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You definitely keep riding. And again, the Cardinals had weeks, months to prepare for the Bills. And maybe they're thinking like everyone else is thinking, hey, offense is going to run through Dalton Kincaid. I haven't seen any numbers on the double team and all that type of stuff, but that might have been the issue there for sure. And so I think that could be a situation where the Bills just get back to rolling with it. I think Josh is going to be a lot more comfortable playing in this offense, not having to worry about feeding Stephon Diggs. How many targets did he get? I think everyone's kind of just happy to be there and happy to kind of win. And so 1 week it's Shakir and Mac Hollins. Next week it'll be Kincaid. But like we said all offseason, man, Dawson Knox is going to be a thorn in Kincaid's side. Like, wouldn't you? And you know what's going to be even the worst from a viewing perspective? He catches it over the middle, and I'm like, go, Kincaid, go. And because they look so similar on the field, and you realize, that was Dawson Knox with a 35-yard catch and run. Like, no. So that's going to be annoying.
But Sal Capaccio, my colleague at WGR, pointed out about that one play that Knox had. He's like, well, maybe that makes the difference is who they're keying on, and that could end up being good for Knox and bad for Kincaid, depending on your double teams point and everything like that. We are fully transparent here in the deep end. We've showed you a good Fantasy Pros team from the hard ways. Our Dynasty team is 1-0. It looks okay. The main event team we drafted is in last after 1 week, 0-1, 12th place. If you don't mind taking a quick look at that, because you and I should, talk this out, which we haven't done yet. at 0-1.
Do you have it? I don't see it.
Did I share it or no?
Thoughts?
You're right. I didn't. You got to hear in a second.
It's old. Yeah, this is old. This is the other one. I had some, and listen, I had some duds too. I had a lot of duds, a lot of like hero RB teams that went, had all the bad receivers, for sure. And this is.
We scored a fancy 92 points in our first week in the main event here. I'm going to scroll it and you talk me through it. What happened?
What happened? Well, quarterback, nothing. I mean, there was like 2 good quarterbacks, 3 good quarterbacks all week. Javonte Williams, that's probably like the scariest situation for me. I have a ton of Javonte, and he was the 1B. He had fewer carries than McLaughlin and fewer targets. So that to me is scary. But they were in a trailing game script, and who knows?
Now they get Pittsburgh.
So, I mean, Javonte Williams is a guy I was getting in the later 7th, 8th round. So hopefully we have someone else we can put in for him. But Chase Brown, another one that was the clear. He was like the 1C on the field for them. He didn't do much. Drake London had a matchup with Joey Porter Jr., so that didn't go very well. Lamb will be fine. But Juwan Johnson showed up a little bit for us. Tank Dell, again, you never know from week to week who's going to do it with the Texans. This week it was not Tank Dell. We started Yoshivas for somebody, I think. There was Hopkins, who we didn't know at the time is playing with a torn MCL.
We did. That's why we did this.
Okay. No, but I mean, we didn't know when we drafted him, I think.
No, right.
Torn MCL.
Right.
That is
we killed it at kicker and defense and still lost by 40.
I'm hoping to see J.K. Dobbins on the bench on this team. I'll tell you that much.
High drama here at the Super Bowl.
Oh, there it is. Dobbins.
I mean, is that solid though?
Yes.
It
is. Yes.
Oh boy, I don't know.
It is. Listen, the only thing that's disappointing is that they didn't start the drive from the 50. He would have had 3 touchdowns. He had 2 60-yard runs. He gets dragged down, but they want to run the ball.
Look at this bench.
I know it's ugly. Shipley, Lloyd, Hollywood, Tiggins, all the injuries.
Well, in another universe, we start Brown. I'm not sure that wasn't even. No, he was injured by then. That was just like a value pick. But T. Higgins, Hopkins, Andrews, I don't know. We wouldn't have won.
Who did the guy we play? Who did he put in for McCaffrey? He or she. Who did they have to be able to slide in there at the last second? Mason. There you go. McCaffrey, Mason.
Chad.
Got to do it. Oh, who is it? Chad? Oh, of course it is.
I mean, is it really necessary to just sort of hide your identity all the way up until week 1 and then show up and, it's Chad? Is it really, does anybody really care? It's a $2,000 team.
Did he have a different name?
Well, I'm not sure in this case, but I know people do that. And I don't remember seeing him. We drafted this team on September 1st, and you and I talked. I don't know anybody in there. I mean, how many different names do you have, or what?
It's a mystery.
Okay, I mean, we know you're spending tons of money. We know you're good at it. Is it really so necessary to pretend that's not you? I don't get that. I mean, it's also wrong. It feels wrong. And if it feels wrong, it is. This wouldn't have changed anything about what we did, but who cares? So, okay, well, Chad's in this league. Great. We know him. We respect him. But is there really a benefit to pretending it's not you?
Well, some people, listen, the FFWC world, I'll tell you, they all know who everyone's taken all the time. They're upset. They have boards and because they want to be able to snipe you and they want to be able to know what you're going to do so they can do. So if that's why he was doing it, then I get it. Hide and because listen,
Adam, you've played against this guy so many times.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know this. He was at the 1, we were at the 2. So your roster construction is the thing there when you're playing 1-2. It's not like, I've seen Adam Krautwurst draft CD Lamb 17 times in the last 80 drafts. I mean, all right. Big shock. You take Lamb, everybody does.
Yeah.
But it's more just I don't know. We've seen him, we've seen him draft in the middle. Pros versus Joes 1 year, he did really well against us, and he just took the value in the middle. I saw him on a ship chasing draft recently. Maybe it was the the one that I hosted for them. It's like, okay, well, he gets the value in the middle. That's how you do it. Does anything change if people don't know who you are? Like, it just feels wrong. Like sign up for your leagues. If it's really you, if it's your money, good for you. Go get it. You're entitled to draft as many teams as are allowed, and then just like sort of be real. I don't know. Is that controversial? Why is that even controversial?
Yeah, no, I know. Listen, when you do it for a living, when you're 300K deep, it's like wearing sunglasses when you're playing poker. Like, is it you? Are you hiding behind?
It's still Phil Hellmuth though. Like,
sure,
he can wear sunglasses and we can't see his eyes, but we know who it is.
That's right.
Like, what is? It's not even our or any other players in the league what they don't know. It's really like, could you ever do it? Could you ever really sign up for one of these leagues and put in the name like Joe Smith or have one of your friends sign up instead because you're Max and be like, oh, well, it's not really me. And then the season starts and, oh, okay, well, Cocktails and Dreams. I mean, just Team 87. Could you actually do that yourself?
It would have been better if he did it at a live draft and just.
I could never do that myself. That's all I'm saying. I'm not looking for credit. I just feel like there's something feels right about objecting to that. And, that's what I'm standing on.
I like it. Real quick waiver question. Jordan Mason, 10-team league. You picking Mason up over Likely? I say absolutely. Always running back. Never drop a running back. Likely, I think, is going to fade back to where he normally is as a pure backup tight end. And Mason could be a league winner. And so, and I think McCaffrey might be out longer than we think. So definitely pick up Mason over Likely. Mike, what do you think?
I would agree, but I'm not so definitive about it. I think that it mattered probably pretty significantly that Jackson was so tuned into Likely in that first game. That's how good Jackson is. Yes. As we talked about earlier, unexpectedly, he didn't really have Andrews, who's wide receiver too. And, Likely comes open, or even if he doesn't, he's a good athlete. And Jackson found him at times and ended up having a big night, almost like an incredible night, 1 inch away from a tying or winning touchdown there at the end. So I think Likely after a very sketchy start to tight end could be, super relevant. I wouldn't scoff at whether he stays useful. He's going to be startable in these leagues. Mason, though, that could be just everything we dream about when we get to week 1 and we get to waivers and like, all right, well, here's all my money. And I wouldn't do that for Likely, but I wouldn't be surprised either if Likely was like a top 10 tight end this year.
Yeah. He's going to have to be involved. Are you thinking he'd be top 10 and Andrews falls out, or that they're both top 10, like 8 and 10 or something like that?
No, I think they could both be, they should score a lot of points. It's Zay Flowers. It's Justice Hill. And it's these two guys. That they were 12 personnel, 53%, if I remember right. Like, plenty of time on the field. They'll have only easier games than playing at Kansas City. And so, Likely's probably good.
Listen.
And would you rather you have Njoku down, you have Ferguson down.
Yeah.
You have, after that, Ty Conklin was good for 1 catch from Tyrod Taylor, Hunter Henry, Fant, you mentioned these guys that were like, okay, we can sneak through the back door and pick these tight ends later. They were 1 catch each, if that.
Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram had 1 catch and he was tight end 7 or 8 in drafts.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think all I'm saying is I think Likely is worth caring about.
Oh, he's definitely worth caring about, but I'm going Mason over Likely for sure. Just my opinion.
Am I in a sauna? Why am I like your picture quality is always so much better than mine? I feel like I'm about to be.
When you put your bobblehead up there, focus on the bobblehead, and it never recovered.
Oh, really? That's what happened?
Recovered. Yeah, I think so. You might need to put the bobblehead back up there.
Just leave him.
Yeah, just leave him.
Isaiah Likely could be a top 10 tight end. I wouldn't be surprised. Adam?
That's right. Question for you. First and second round picks. How many points do you expect out of your first or second round pick heading like in a game? Like what are your expectations?
Well, I'm sorry, I can't keep holding that thing there. What are we talking about? Like, I don't know, 45? What's good? That's probably good. You take 45 points from your top 2 picks, wouldn't you, in a given week?
I'm sorry, I mean first or second. Like if you're rolling out Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson, if they don't score 15 points, you're pretty pissed.
Yeah. Jefferson about did that in week 1, but you could live with it. I think that might be a good number where if it's lower, you're upset, but if you get 15 points, you're probably okay.
So here's the ADP for the first 2 rounds. How many busts we got? 1, 2, 3. Jefferson, did he get 15?
Yeah, about.
Okay. Chase, no. 4. Garrett Wilson, no. 5. Laporta, 6. Nakua, 7.
Wilson
McBride,
came
8.
a little bit close.
Kelce, 9. Harrison, 10. London, 11. Kincaid, 12. Etienne got there with a touchdown. Olave, 13. 13 of the 24 picks complete busts in the first
week.
In the first week. That's what I'm saying. Like this week, what the scoring, the passing, the tight ends, the receivers, the quarterback was a disgusting mess. It was. That's why you got a lot of teams 90 point. Like if you went receiver, if you went Harrison, London, or Nakua, Harrison or London, you scored 60 points on the week. You know what I mean? Came back with Evan Ingram, came back with Amari Cooper. Like that whole right hand side of the board, dead. Just gross. Tank Dell.
It's
Metcalf, 1 catch, 2 catches, whatever it was. Like, some teams were just gross on the right hand side of the board this week.
But I think you'd agree, it's one game.
Oh, sure.
You have Diggs on the left side who had 2 touchdowns on 9 air yards.
Right. Right.
You had T. Higgins with a hamstring. Maybe he decides to he gets right and plays. You have Pickens, who was fine. Mixon was a winner this week. It's just, I don't know. When it comes to tight end, I am not worried about McBride at all.
Oh, me either. You got targets.
I mean, Laporta and St. Brown didn't get there against the Rams. That's kind of interesting, but that should change. They have Tampa Bay this week, high-scoring game expected. Funny how the Lions open at home with the 2 teams they played at home in the playoffs back in the same order, the Rams and then Tampa Bay. So not worried about Laporta, not worried about I didn't draft Laporta very much, but I think he's probably okay. Not going to get you beat. McBride, Kelce, all of them. There's no tight end in the top 8 there through Kittle where I'd be like really worried. Ferguson and Njoku got hurt. Ferguson could even be, a game or less this week. We don't know yet. Bowers, I mentioned Bucky Irving and Jordan Mason. Bowers was my most drafted player on Underdog, and that was a very promising start. They threw the ball a lot. 8 teams were pass rate over expected in week 1. The Raiders were number 1 on that list.
Yeah.
And in his first game, remember all the years of rookie tight ends suck?
Yeah.
And like Bauer shows up, losing game script, but still was effective in the first week. You and I have him as we showed in the Dynasty draft, and I think I'm going to want to start him every week.
Well, they're going to get a lot of losing game scripts because they're not very good. Zamir White isn't. Not. I have like 1 share of Zamir White anywhere ever, and when I announced it, I said this is the worst pick I'll make all summer, and sure enough, it was. And so because they're going to be in trailing game scripts, and Zamir White isn't that guy. So, before I close this thing, who are you worried about this week outside of injury? Like, is there a player or offense that you're? I know we didn't plan on talking about this, but I get nervous. I'm nervous about Marvin Harrison. I'm not going to lie. In a game where they were trailing, it was a high scoring game. He gets a target over the middle, drops it, gets wide open on a late kind of blown coverage. Kyler doesn't really see him. Has 1 other catch. I mean, that would have been a game for him to. I know the Bills have a decent secondary, but it's banged up. That kind of scares me.
Well, the complaint on Murray, who is this great, athlete, but one side of the field, and he had plenty of time on that play and never saw Harrison. I think the obvious answer to this question is Atlanta. Cleveland might be second. You've got to wonder what Atlanta has gotten into with Cousins. I have been very big on drafting all those guys, like so many of us have. I do the Purple Insider podcast every Wednesday with Matthew Collar. Every week we're talking about like his former quarterback in Minnesota, Cousins, and like just that should be perfect for everybody. Absolute disaster in week 1. Couldn't plant they knew it, Adam. They knew it by how they called their plays. He's in the pistol all day, no play action. It's against TJ Watt and the Steelers. Get the ball and throw it. Like they knew they were going to lose. So yeah, I think you got to be worried for London, maybe Pitts too, all of it. They do have Penix. What a thing it would be if he ends up going in even kind of soon because Cousins just can't play. And then who knows what happens? Maybe they'll come back to life or maybe they're all dead. I don't know. Atlanta is very scary because there was so much draft capital in those players. Robinson is round 1, London is round 2, and then Pitts. So I'm worried there. Amari Cooper, he got targets in that game. I'm predicting a bounce back for Cleveland.
Really?
They play 4 of their next 5 on the road.
They were favorites this weekend, though, and got freaking embarrassed.
They did, but that's a good team. And Dallas was probably underplayed in the offseason because the vibes were so bad. So, Prescott got paid the night before, Lamb the week before, and they had an easy game. If I were Deshaun Watson, imagine the thought of being Deshaun Watson. But one thing I am looking forward to right now is getting out of there, getting out of Cleveland for in the short term. I don't mean forever. Maybe he's thinking about that too. But at Jacksonville this week, home game, and then 3 in a row on the road, maybe he can, sort of stabilize. And, Cooper got targets. We'll see if the running game, they have a lot of good players. And so I wouldn't totally give up on the Browns.
Yeah, I think Deshaun Watson's dead. The stuff I was watching of him, just the way they were breaking the game film down, he just doesn't look like he knows where to go with the ball. And it could have been a whole different game if he throws that. He stays in there. He's tough. Stays in there. Takes a big hit. Delivers a beautiful deep ball to Cooper, who drops it. So that could have changed a couple fantasy outlooks, but it just hasn't been good. Flacco was humming last year with this team, and it's like Flacco was 40 years old.
Maybe he gets a little bit more time to throw. Nobody played in the preseason.
Yeah,
and I think especially this year, you want to be patient. Because of that, that's Atlanta, that's Chicago, even with Caleb Williams, that's Arizona, where Harrison played 4 snaps. Everybody decided, except for Kansas City, to sit their guys in the preseason. And a lot of those teams, even the Bills, they looked sort of rough. So treat week 1 as casually as you ever have. Because, different matchups in week 2 and the preseason point, it would make sense to me if teams were a lot sharper in the next couple of weeks.
I hope so, because it was ugly to watch. It was the results were ugly, the fantasy results for a lot of these guys. Couple of things that worry me too. Blake Corum, him being the RB3 there. I'm hoping that's a preseason thing too. Hey, we only had 3 games and this, that, and the third. He was active. He sat on the sidelines. I wasn't starting him anyways, but he's more of an injury handcuff guy for me. But then he doesn't play. That's interesting. And also, the Dolphins running back. I'm losing. I'm
Achane.
fading. No,
Jalen Wright.
Jalen Wright, another one, healthy, which I don't mind too. Because again, I was taking Jalen Wright as a straight handcuff type of guy. So it was I have so much Achane. It was exciting for me to see Jalen Wright not active, so that they could rock out with Achane. But
the only time I heard Jeff Wilson's name all off season was you and I in the deep end with Trista Crick, drafting him in round 20.
Trista, what a call! Get her on the show. Let's go.
We should. She brought it up today on WGR. Don't we have Jeff Wilson?
Yeah.
I can tell you, she's so interested.
She's locked in.
So that team,
Chase Claypool.
Yeah, maybe that team was 10th. That was Marty's team, I think.
Oh, okay.
That team was 10th out of 12. And it's like, what's our record? You know, what do we do? Do we have to make trades? Like, no. We're not doing any of that. It's best ball, best ball tournament. We're not doing any of that. But we do have Jeff Wilson and Achan on that team. It's a Lamb and Prescott team as well. Prescott, very disappointing stat line in fantasy because that felt like it should have been better. Sort of
Lamb
like
too.
Olave felt.
Yeah, the three catches in the first drive. Like, ugh.
Yeah. Big one in there as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that'll do it for the deep end tonight. Feel free to tweet at, is it X? Is the verb X? Do you exit us or do you tweet at us?
Can you X? Is it a verb?
X at Adam at BendFF1. He and I will both see it and we'll do our best to respond. Good luck out there in the streets, and we'll be back soon. Mike Shope, Adam Krautwurst. Thanks to the Player Profiler Network for having us. Please like and subscribe to help us grow our show. We'll see you next time in the deep end.
See you guys.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.